Welcome to the Couch Scouts podcast. We provide league-winning analysis, advice, and tools to help you dominate your league and build a dynasty. Scout, draft, win. Here's your host, Matt Cooper.
Welcome to the Couch Scouts podcast, episode 45. This week, we're doing an NFC preview. And we got a lot of exciting things to talk about this week, not just an NFC preview, but I'm your host, Matt Cooper. With me is my co-host, Matt Rupert.
How you doing?
And Matt Jackson.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Yeah, so tonight we're continuing a 2-week series where we were breaking down the AFC, and now we're breaking down the NFC and just discussing important news, players to own, as well as making a little Super Bowl prediction there at the end. And yeah, I'm excited to get into it. But before we get into that, I just have to just get it out of the way. I'm so excited. I know y'all are so excited. This week, 2 days from today, Thursday, September 5th, our website is launching. We have been working on it all summer long. We're super excited about it. We can't wait for you guys to see it. And I think you're going to love it. We've been cutting film. So like if you're wanting to subscribe to the website, if you're a film junkie like we are, if you want to see every snap from Tet McMillan's monster game this weekend, we're going to have it in there, all 22. If you want to do every snap from Jeremiah Smith's big game of his true freshman season, we got you. And I don't know anywhere else on the internet that you can find that. Literally anywhere else. Much less, if it exists, I guarantee you it's not $5 a month. So we're doing everything that we can to make this thing an absolute steal for you guys. There's going to be bonus podcasts. Jackson and I tonight, after this show finishes, we're going to be recording our first bonus members-only podcast, recapping college football week 1 from a dynasty perspective. And that is going to be up on the site waiting for you guys as soon as you subscribe on Thursday. As well as a lot of stuff that's already in our film room waiting for you guys. Our rookie guide, which y'all loved this past year. We got so much positive feedback on it. That's going to be part of our membership package now. And so, yeah, lots and lots and lots of value packed into that thing. And we can't wait for you guys to see it. So without further ado, let's get into the show tonight. And we'll start with some news. NFC preseason news. Brandon Ayuk finally signs a 4-year, $120 million contract with the 49ers. He's staying put. Who is the player to own in this offense? And what does this do for values? Anything for you guys?
I mean, for me, obviously the player to own is still Christian McCaffrey. I mean, that goes without saying. Deciphering that wide receiver position is going to be a bit of a conundrum. Really like their rookie wide receiver that they had coming into the year. Ricky Pearsall, unfortunately, I mean, that horrific accident they had, he got shot. It's going to have to be recovering from that. So makes the wide receiver position a little bit less murky, I guess. For me, I think if you're going to own any players, I'm not sure if I'm buying really a wide receiver from there. I really like Brock Purdy at value. I think Brock Purdy is a really good value, especially where you can get him in startup drafts. So if I'm picking anybody, it's obviously Christian McCaffrey, but I'm probably taking the quarterback for that offense.
Yeah, can we just stop a minute and talk about the Ricky Pearsall thing? Because what a G, man. Like, he takes a shot through the chest, gets the gun off the robber, shoots the guy with his own gun.
Crazy.
Like, man, talk about street cred. Ricky Pearsall, prayers up for a quick recovery for him, but what a story, man. But it is a bummer because he is probably going to miss most, if not all, of his rookie season. But yeah, it's interesting. Go ahead.
I actually heard that it wasn't his chest, it was his arm. And that was a bad, unverified report that went around about it going through his chest. So I did see that he has a really strong potential to play this year still.
I saw a video of him getting like loaded up into the ambulance, and it was like right in here. So it was like his kind of sort of chest, kind of sort of shoulder, but it was not on the side of his heart. Obviously, it was on the right side of his body. But anyway, prayers up for Ricky Pearsall, and a prospect that we liked when we broke down his film for the Rookie Guide. So first round draft capital. The bummer for him, obviously, is that Ayuk stays long term. And so it's like, when does he get a path to like real opportunity to make him fantasy relevant, even when he gets healthy? There's a lot of mouths to feed in that offense between Pearsall, Debo, Kittle, Ayuk, who I think is a stud. I was really hoping to see Ayuk go somewhere else for his own fantasy value, because I think he could be a superstar if he was a clear alpha on a team and didn't have to split targets with so many other good offensive weapons. But let's move on here. The next news item we're going to discuss here is the Cowboys do not seem to be in a big rush to sign Dak to a long-term deal. Is this a make or break year for Dak Prescott? We'll go to you, Rupert.
Yeah, I think so. The Cowboys have seemingly always balked at giving him an extension. They did for years. What was it, like 4 or 5 years ago? They balked for 2 or 3 seasons. It seems like they're really not wanting to commit to him, and it's getting to that time, towards the middle end of his career where, they could choose to just go full rebuild, since they really haven't had much playoff success in the last decade. So I think it could be a make or break year, and obviously he would have suitors everywhere else, but I can totally see Jerry Jones and the Cowboys being a little stingy here and going a different direction.
The crazy thing about Dak Prescott is he's such a monster in the regular season, right? I mean, you want to talk about a quarterback that's going to put up just consistently great fantasy football numbers for you in the regular season. But, I mean, obviously the Cowboys aren't playing fantasy football, and Dak's won, 1 or 2 playoff games in his entire career. I mean, that's not a quarterback that is getting it done or showing that he can get it done in the postseason. So, I mean, it's absolutely a make or break season for Dak Prescott, because if he doesn't do it, and if he does the same thing again, I mean, how long can the Cowboys championship window stay open? I mean, eventually you're going to have to move on and find somebody that can get it done in the postseason.
I'll throw a counterpoint out there and just say that Jerry Jones kind of plays this chicken game with everybody. He did it to Zeke. Zeke had to hold out to get his money. He just did it to CeeDee Lamb. And obviously they signed CeeDee Lamb long-term. So why do you do that if you're about to blow it up and rebuild and not bring Dak back? And I'll just say, even if they move on from Dak, like you said, Rupert, he'll have plenty of other suitors. And I think he would go and be a plenty good fantasy quarterback elsewhere. So I'm not overly worried about Dak Prescott. I think it's just kind of Jerry Jones' MO at this point, that he's going to wait till the very last possible second. And he's probably going to screw himself in the process, because a couple more quarterbacks are going to get paid and they're going to raise the bar. And Dak is going to end up getting more money because Jerry Jones keeps kicking the can down the road on it. But let's go into our last news item for the NFC. And that is Jordan Love says that he doesn't have to have a number 1 wide receiver. It's better when you have multiple playmakers to spread the ball out to. And their offense kind of reflects that. I mean, he has 4 guys that are intriguing from a talent perspective, and it is kind of murky to try to figure out who to trust for fantasy. How are you guys deciphering this Packers receiver puzzle? We'll start with you, Jackson.
Yeah, for me, I mean, if I'm taking any wide receiver from this team, I really like what Jaden Reed did last year. He's gotten a lot of hype in preseason, at least, about being that potential number 1 receiver for Jordan Love. I mean, he's tied to a quarterback that, has shown promise, and we're going to talk about that later on in the show. Not a lot of, no one's come up and proven they could be that 1,300 yard receiver yet. But I mean, if there's anybody to own, especially at ADP, I mean, I think Jaden Reed's ADP right now is really, really low, or lower than it should be. So give me Jaden Reed in this offense from a sheer talent perspective and what he did last year, especially late in the season.
Yeah, Rupert, anything?
I agree with that. At his value, I think Reed just presents really good value to take there. as far as like the question whether or not it's better to have multiple playmakers, I really like it because they're all talented guys, right? They're not just, some Jags that he's throwing around to. They're talented guys. Jaden Reed, I could totally see, 3 or 4 players having 700, 800 yards each. And that's where I'm really going to be watching those first 3 weeks of the season to see if I can kind of get a gauge on how I think this is going to play out the rest of the season and maybe make some moves for the guy that I think may end up being their number one.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because from a talent perspective, I love Jaden Reed. I think because there are so many of them, fantasy-wise, it makes it hard to trust any of them. But down the stretch last year, Jaden Reed was very good for fantasy. As the season got going and his rookie year kind of, he established himself in the latter half of the season as the top guy, and he was a touchdown machine, which that can be a little less sticky than targets and yards and stuff. But he was very, very usable, startable for fantasy down the stretch last year. Christian Watson, can he stay healthy? Because that can throw a wrench in everything. I think most of the time that Jaden Reed was really productive for fantasy, Christian Watson was not on the field. He's the guy that they spent a first-round pick on, obviously. Or no, it was an early second, wasn't it?
It was early second.
Yeah, second-round pick. And then and so they also spent a second-round pick on Jaden Reed. So those are the two guys that they're the most invested in. Dobbs and Wicks have shown flashes and played well. I think Dobbs has had a better career than Christian Watson so far. But, yeah, it's interesting. I'm kind of with you guys. I trust Reed the most by far out of the group, and I'm not sure I trust any of the other 3 guys. But for them as an actual NFL offense, it's great because it makes them not predictable. And Jordan Love can just – his quote here that we're reacting off of, yeah, it's better for him because he can just – whoever's open, throw it to him. He doesn't have to try to force feed one guy because the other guys aren't separating for him or whatever. So
one thing I did see that I thought was interesting today about Christian Watson was he hasn't missed a single practice this whole offseason, which has been quite rare for him. So I thought that was something interesting to note. So maybe we can break the streak of
I had actually seen that there was something about his hamstrings or his calf, some kind of muscle. It was like out of balance. Like one leg was way bigger than the other leg, and it was causing these issues because the other leg was trying to overwork to keep up. And so he was with some, medical neurologist, some kind of specialist that helped him balance out the muscle between his 2 legs. And they're hoping that this totally solves these hamstring issues that he keeps having. So, that'll be interesting to keep an eye on for sure. I still don't know how much I buy Watson as like a route runner, a target earner, a true guy that you can bank on for fantasy as much as he is just a big play threat that helps the Packers more than he is a consistent fantasy producer. But obviously if he stays healthy all year, that changes the equation for the other 3 guys too. So, and we haven't even talked about Luke Musgrave and they've got a couple good young tight ends there too, Tucker Kraft. So let's move on. This next segment, we're each going to be highlighting an NFC team that we are wanting to keep an eye on and why. And excited to get into this. And one of them we just talked about, so I'm gonna save that one for last. Give a little breather here. But Rupert, why don't you start us off? Who is the NFC team that you are keeping an eye on?
For fantasy purposes, it's Arizona for me. They were one of the worst teams last year, but Kyler Murray wasn't himself. Coming back from injury, now he's healthy. Had a good while to recover from that ACL injury. He's got what I think is probably going to be tight end 1 this season, and Trey McBride. And then they added the best wide receiver prospect we've ever scouted in Marvin Harrison. So he's got some elite weapons. He's got good running backs with Connor and Trey Benson. And then also he's got some intriguing young options behind Marvin Harrison. Greg Dortch is, a very trendy, I guess, sleeper pick this year, especially in redraft. But he's a guy that I've stashed on a couple rosters, and I'm hoping, he can really take off in the slot this year. And then Michael Wilson was a guy that flashed as a rookie last year. Big, tall, wide out, some good movement skills. So it's really there's a lot of interesting pieces to watch this year on Arizona's team.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of this Cardinals offense from a fantasy perspective. I think Trey McBride, he's not the number one guy this year, but like what you want for a tight end is to be a top 2 target earner on his team, and he is very clearly that. Talented young player. Marvin Harrison Jr. should be a stud. Kyler, this is the best supporting cast he's ever had. James Conner has been consistently good. Yeah, he's been consistently good for fantasy for years. And then you got Trey Benson, who they just spent a day 2 draft pick on, and is a prospect that a lot of people are excited about. So it should be a fun team for sure. I'm actually counting on Greg Dortch in a spot because I just did my one and only redraft last night. Redraft draft. That's a mouthful. And I took both Jonathan Brooks and TJ Hawkinson. I just felt like they fell way too far because of the injury. So I scooped up the value, threw them both on IR, but it left me kind of thin until one of those guys gets back because it's a 14-team league and you got 2 guys that you drafted that aren't playing for a while. So I actually picked Greg Dortch up off of waivers after the draft. I moved Brooks and Hawkinson to IR, cleared up some roster spots, added Dortch, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to be starting him this week. So here's to hoping. But Jackson, who's your team to keep an eye on in the NFC?
Yeah, we just hit on him for a while, so I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I'm keeping an eye on the Green Bay Packers. I'm really intrigued for them, just for all the things that we talked about, the pass catching situation. Jordan Love, I think, is going to take another major step up this season. And one thing that we didn't really talk about is that running back room. A.J. Dillon just got put on IR last week. I'm really intrigued to see what Marshawn Lloyd does this year, a guy that we really like the talent. Is he going to get his opportunity to really be the spell to that in that RB2 position? I'm really excited to see what he does, especially from a home run fantasy football perspective.
Yeah, for sure. And I think Jordan Love is a great one too. I mean, we kind of talked about that receiver room, but the one guy that benefits no matter who catches the passes is Jordan Love. I think he was top 5 last year and should be again. Young player, and I don't know why he's going as late in dynasty drafts as he is, but I've scooped up quite a few shares. So love that shout out. And the team that I'm going to be keeping an eye on is the Chicago Bears. I mean, there's everything's new there, right? Caleb Williams, they bring in totally new quarterback, totally new coaching staff, where he just had DJ Moore and a bunch of scrubs last year. Now he's got Rome Odunze and Keenan Allen. And then they bring in and they pay DeAndre Swift too. So like, that's a lot of new pieces. And we have to keep our eye out for like, how is this touch distribution going to go? How quickly is Caleb going to develop into the guy that everyone thinks that he will be? How involved is Rome Odunze going to be in this 3-headed wide receiver room? Is he just this really good dynasty asset that's not going to do much for you this year? Or is he going to come in and show like he is that dude and you can't keep him? Like he could come in. It's not out of the realm of possibility that he could come in and be the number 1 guy right off rip. I think that would be tough to do because Keenan Allen and DJ Moore are really, really good. But Rome Odunze is great too. So is there going to be a fantasy stud at wide receiver, or do they all cannibalize each other while Caleb develops? I think if everything goes right, look at what Stroud did last year and how quickly he skyrocketed up dynasty ranks. If a rookie comes out and balls out, I mean, Caleb could set the league on fire and fly up dynasty draft boards. All 3 of these pieces could eat if he has a season like CJ Stroud had last year. Is there going to be a usable running back? I mean, they paid DeAndre Swift, but he's never been a true bell cow. And how involved, I think Khalil Herbert and Roshan Johnson are probably going to be involved enough to be annoying to DeAndre Swift owners. So, and Caleb doesn't seem like the type to throw to the running back all that much either. So, yeah, I have my skepticisms about the running back room. But overall, this is just, there's so much unknown and so much that's new that I very much am interested to keep my eye on this for redraft and for dynasty purposes.
Isn't it so crazy? I mean, have you ever seen a rookie quarterback get the type of help and supporting cast that Caleb Williams got in the draft and like the offseason? Like Rarely do you see that. And for just a strictly NFL position, I mean, when's the last time the Bears have had like a really great quarterback? I mean, they have been a dumpster fire for a few years now. I'm kind of with you.
More than a few.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you, Cooper, at the running back position, because you didn't even talk about it, but I mean, Caleb Williams is a dual threat among dual threats. I mean, is he just going to is he going to be the type of guy that just takes carries away from the running backs? It's going to be interesting to watch.
Yeah, I think at the very least he's going to be the type of guy that when he gets in trouble, he scrambles instead of taking his check down, and that's going to take receptions away from these running backs. But yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to pay attention to for sure. So let's take a quick break, and I just wanted to shout out, if you're new here, thanks for listening. This is our first time being live on Twitter/X. I know a lot of you guys are listening over there right now, and glad to have you guys. If you're new to the show, welcome. One thing I want to highlight for you guys, we have a Discord. So we don't just want to be talking at you guys all the time. We want to get to know the people that listen to our show. We want to create a community. And so we have a free Discord. The link is going to be in the show notes. I got to figure out how to get that on Twitter for the people watching on Twitter. But if you find us YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all those places, we're going to have the Discord link in the show notes. Would love to have you guys join, get to know you guys. We're always in there. It's like 100 dudes in there. We're always talking news as it breaks, reacting to that. People are posting their trades, getting other people's thoughts on their trades, who they should draft when they're on the clock. It was buzzing the other day in the game day chat during college football. We were all kind of reacting to plays as they happen. I'm super excited to see what that's going to be like next week.
If you want to clown me about a trade I made when I was a dynasty rookie, I mean, that was going on today. It was great space.
That did happen today. But yeah, I mean, NFL week 1 next week, that game day chat is going to be hopping. So y'all get in the Discord for sure. And let's continue on with the show here. And this next segment we're going to be talking about is NFC players that we like at ADP. So we took a look at dynastydatalabs.com with their startup dynasty draft ADP. So we're not talking redraft here. We're talking dynasty ADP and just looking at NFC players that we think are of value compared to where they're being drafted. And we'll start with you, Rupert. Who is your NFC player that you like at ADP?
You kind of just hit on the team with the Bears, and I'm going with DJ Moore. He just finished last year as wide receiver 6 in both full PPR and standard formats. And he's going as wide receiver 19 right now. And he's only 27 years old. They just locked him up long term. And he's just incredibly talented. I've been watching him for years. Loved him in college. And it seems like he's really developed a good rapport with Caleb Williams already. And I totally see him being the number 1 there this year. And just the fact that he's going in the 5th round of startups is kind of crazy to me, and I think it's just screens value.
For sure.
I was just going to say, like, it's so hard to predict. Like we just talked about, who's going to be the wide receiver to own for that team. I really do like the value on DJ Moore, somebody that's gone out there and has proven it. Keenan Allen's getting a little older, so I mean, if there's somebody that's got like juice and is a proven commodity, it's DJ Moore. So I mean, I think it's a great call out. Yeah,
there's rumors too that Keenan Allen is came into camp overweight and not in the best shape, which would surprise me because he's been the consummate professional and, has never been an issue for him ever. But yeah, DJ Moore for sure. I mean, wide receiver 6 last year. And I agree with you. As much as targets might go down because there's more target competition, there's also overall team volume should go up because you have a pass-first quarterback in Caleb Williams instead of a run-first quarterback in Justin Fields. So that can kind of balance itself out. Jackson, who is your NFC player that you like at ADP?
Yeah, so I was really excited about this. It's Jared Goff for the Lions. Jared Goff currently at ADP is getting drafted at QB 17. Guys, I found an interesting stat when I was doing my research today. There's only one quarterback over the past 2 seasons that's finished the season with at least 4,400 passing yards and 29 touchdowns. It's not Patrick Mahomes. It's not C.J. Stroud. It's not Lamar Jackson or Joe Burrow. It's Jared Goff. Last year he finished as the QB 7, above Patrick Mahomes, above C.J. Stroud, above guys like Tua. you look at a guy, I mean, he's going to finish potentially as a QB1. That's a high-powered offense, and you're getting him at low-end QB2 price. I know some people might look at him as an older asset. He's still only 29 years old. So he's not like super old. I mean, the value that you can get on Jared Goff is crazy to me. So he's definitely my player to own right now.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he's not got like the craziest upside in the world, but there's no reason he shouldn't do at least what he did last year. And like you said, that was very consistent, steady Eddie. You could count on him, put him in your lineup, feel great about it every single week. I mean, you can get him as a QB2 and feel good about plugging him in as a QB1. So yeah, love that for sure. I think for some reason it's like he flamed out with the Rams and everybody just thought he was this terrible quarterback and they were just waiting on Detroit to like draft somebody and they never did. And now they've extended him. And I think people still haven't adjusted that perception in their minds that they're still viewing Jared Goff as kind of a scrub. And for fantasy purposes, that's not been the case at all for a couple of years now. So I like that shout out. My NFC player, go ahead.
I think another good point is like arguably his supporting cast is even better this year. It looks like we should see a better Jameson Williams this year. We already know what the Sun God brings to the team. And then Sam Laporta, as good as he was last year, he's still a rookie. So you can definitely make the argument that he's going to have a little bit better supporting cast this year.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's a great supporting cast any way that you cut it. My NFC player that I like at ADP, I shouted out Jackson Smith-Njigba at wide receiver 31 in Dynasty, wide receiver 31. He's priced as a wide receiver 3 in the 6th round of startup drafts. And I get that he had a disappointing rookie season, but isn't it kind of what we expected to happen? Right? Like as soon as he got drafted to the Seahawks, we said, you're going to have to be patient with this guy. He's playing with Tyler Lockett, who's been a stud for a long time, and DK Metcalf. And I know that they extended Lockett. Everybody was hoping that they would just kind of cut Lockett or that he would move on and JSN would have a much clearer path this year. That didn't happen. So I get that. They got a new offensive coordinator. JSN was visibly frustrated with how Shane Waldron was using him last year in Seattle. On top of it, you got Tyler Lockett banged up coming into the year, like dealing with an injury. I think he might be able to play through it, but he's definitely not at 100%. He's another year older, didn't play that great last year. I think Jackson Smith-Njigba is better than Tyler Lockett at this point in their respective careers. And I think to get the most out of Tyler Lockett, you should move him to the slot and let Jackson Smith-Njigba eat on the outside and be in there on 2 wide receiver sets. And I think there's a very good chance that he comes in this year and he's the team's at least number 2, if not number 1 option, and kind of blows away expectations at this wide receiver 31 price tag. There's so much upside at that pick.
Wasn't he just like a top 10 overall pick coming in to like dynasty rankings last year after, his combine? Like it's crazy how much he fell off, but yeah, it's exactly what we predicted. You got to be patient with him. He's behind studs, and I love that they have an offensive coordinator now that likes to air it out. He's going to be running 3 wide receiver sets. He's going to use 3 wide receivers. So even if, Tyler Lockett is Tyler Lockett of old, he's still going to get a lot more usage this year, see a lot more targets, and score a lot more fantasy points.
Well, this is what we do as dynasty managers, right? If a player doesn't hit within the first year, the community just sours on him. And that's not what you need to do with this player. That is screaming value where you can get him right now.
Yeah, people have no patience. And sometimes I get it. Like you got to kind of figure it out. Like Quentin Johnston is an example that you just see that, okay, he's dropping passes. He's not getting on the field. Like he was in a totally different situation where you didn't have Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. You got nobody and you still can't produce. JSN, that's not the same situation. So you got to know when to be patient and when to pull the plug. And this is definitely a situation, I think, with JSN where you just got to be patient. Like what happened last year was expected. It was expected. So we shouldn't be dropping him way down rankings. That doesn't make sense to me. So let's get to our last segment here, and that is NFC Super Bowl predictions. And Rupert, since you spoiled yours last week, you know what? We have some new listeners in here. So why don't you just, for the people who didn't hear you spoil it last week, when you thought that your team was an AFC team.
NFC.
Why don't you tell us your NFC Super Bowl prediction?
Yeah. So I'm going on with a little bit more of a dark horse, I'd say, just due to the fact that they didn't have a great defense last year, but just really intrigued by the Packers and, building that young core. And they did a lot of work this offseason. So I'm going with a little bit of an outlier pick, I guess, with the Packers this year. I want to see Jordan Love take them all the way.
Yeah, man, that seems to be the theme of the show tonight. Just Packers, Packers, Packers. We're not Packers fans, by the way. I promise, none of us. But Jackson, who you got?
Well, since I can't take the Eagles or the Panthers, had to go a little bit different. Had to go a little bit different direction.
The Panthers?
Yeah, not Panthers.
Come on, even as a Panthers fan, come on.
Ain't happening.
I'm going with the Detroit Lions. We just mentioned Jared Goff. That offense, just how high powered they are. They've got a really solid defense as well. They fell just short last season. I believe that this year is the year that they get over that hump and take it to the Super Bowl. Detroit's always been one of those teams that you just want to see do well, right? I know for me personally, whenever they went unwinnable, I guess. I don't know it's not undefeated. What's the opposite of undefeated? They didn't win a game. Rooted for them ever since then. So really rooting for the Detroit Lions this year. I think this is the year that they do it.
Yeah, I think everybody has kind of an easy time, unless you're in the division or whatever. But I think most people, it's just a fun underdog story. It's easy to cheer for the Lions, and they're talented on both sides of the ball. I mean, Aiden Hutchinson is a beast, and that offense is totally loaded. I went with the chalk. I went with the San Francisco 49ers. I mean, you want to talk about loaded on both sides of the ball. My goodness. Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk, who could be a superstar. I said that if he was on a different team, he could be an absolute superstar. Deebo Samuel, who has been very good, arguably the best yards after catch player in the entire league. If Ricky Pearsall can get healthy, having that guy as your wide receiver 3, who's a first-round pick, and George Kittle, by the way, who's been one of the best tight ends for years and years and years. And they're so loaded, and the defense is great too. They have been. I mean, the Bosa effect, and they've just dominated both sides of the ball. I think they've made the Super Bowl. Was it 3 out of the last 4 years or something? So I'm picking the San Francisco 49ers.
Such a boring pick.
You know what's not boring though? Being right.
Right.
I never get tired of being right. So we're all going to be wrong. These prediction things are it's a total crapshoot. But all right, that's going to about do us for tonight. So in a minute, like I said, Jackson and I are going to be recording this bonus episode for you guys that subscribe to the site on Thursday when we launch. Really looking forward to that. So keep your eye out. It'll be all over our social media, all over our Discord, everything. We're going to make sure that you guys find that website because we think you're going to love it. So Jackson, tell them where they can find you on Twitter/X.
Yeah, for those that are listening on Twitter live right now, just go to that search bar and look up Devi Matt. Give me a follow. Would love to interact with you guys and get to know all the new listeners that we have tonight. Really excited about that.
Rupert?
Yeah, you can find me at Matthew Rupert FF on Twitter.
And you can find me at CouchScouts FF on Twitter/X. And you can find us at YouTube on youtube.com/@CouchScouts. And yeah, man, we would love to have you guys. We're on Apple, we're on Spotify. So if you're listening on Twitter right now and you're loving the show and you want to kind of make this a part of your weekly rhythm, you could either tune in with us live every Tuesday night, or you can get in the habit of doing it on your Wednesday commute on one of those podcast platforms. So definitely look us up. Leave us a like, comment, subscribe, review on your podcast app, whatever. All that just really helps people find the show, and we really appreciate you guys tuning in.